Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I've grown into the person that I am today. And I haven't been over here for a while, so I wanted to get on here and I wanted to make a video and read a few meditations. 2 days from now is my 28th sobriety birthday, if I should make it, because we don't borrow time in recovery. I probably will do on my main channel, my Peter Monn channel, some video talking about recovery that day. And depending on how many videos I end up making that day, I probably will do something over here talking about recovery as well, something completely different. I don't really know what. I want to do something specific over here, talking maybe about going into treatment or fear going into treatment or something like that. Because I know that that was such a huge part of me starting the whole process. And I was talking in my vlog the other day, and then it kind of like overlapped, and I ended up talking about it in my meeting and talking about it to my friend Tanya and stuff. It's like, you know, I can remember before I got sober, just this absolute fear that I had of what my life would look like without using. Like, I just could not imagine, you know, not drinking and not using drugs. I just couldn't even imagine it, honestly. And really, it wasn't just like a resistance to it, you know. It was really an internal, true fear that I had of like, what would my life look like without all of that? You know, and this emotional connection that I had. And I was talking about how, like, you know, alcohol and drugs were like my best friend, you know. I loved everything about it. And a friend of mine was saying, she said to me the other night when I said that to her, she said, beer was my best friend that I cheated on with vodka. And, you know, but it's true. And I think when you're an alcoholic, you know, so much of our lives are spent with our best friend. You know, we grieve, we celebrate, we lean on. And so to imagine what our lives are going to be like without that is terrifying, right? And so that was very much where I was and how I felt before I went into treatment. And I didn't even know, you know, that the night or the day that I went into treatment, I didn't even know that that was going to be the day that I went into treatment. So, but people had mentioned it to me before, you know, that, I mean, that wasn't my first time going to treatment, but people had mentioned to me up till that point recent that I needed to go and that I needed to make changes. And I was like, no, I'm too scared, you know? And so to think that the thing that I was most afraid of in my life, you know, of making those huge changes and of walking through the doors of treatment, that thing that I was terrified of would in turn give me everything that I have in my life today. You know, when I look back on my life, and it's like, you know, Boo Radley has been like very attention seeking for the 3 minutes I've been doing this video. He's like up here. Come on, Boo. You want to come up here, Booby? Come here. He's like, I want to be in this video today, Daddy. But, you know, from everything from Alex and my marriage to my dog, to my dogs that I've had, you know, to my house, to YouTube, to you guys, to everything. It's like, you know, to all my friends and my family, you know, everything that I have had, to writing a book, you know, to graduating with my master's degree, to graduating with my undergraduate degree, to everything that I have in my life, everything that I've accomplished, all goes back to that day that I walked through treatment. And, you know, and I think about that, and I think about how terrified I was, and, you know, that I was so scared of that. And it ultimately gave me this life beyond my wildest dreams, and I am so grateful for it. So I'll probably talk, I was like, oh, I talked a lot about that today, didn't I? But I'll probably talk more about that on Saturday, if I do a video about that over here. All right, let's get into one of these books today. While Boo Radley is back there scratching and making his bed, you hear him? I have to tell you, I'm very excited because, so I had to take a couple Ubers today. I had a doctor's appointment this morning, and so afterward, Alex took me to my doctor's appointment, but I had to take an Uber home. So I took an Uber from the doctor's appointment to eat breakfast, because I was like, well, I'm up already, so I might as well go eat breakfast. And then from the breakfast place home, I took an Uber. And so I was talking to the Uber drivers, and both of them were like, it's cold outside today, it's very windy. And both of them were like, do you know it's supposed to be really, really cold next week? And I looked, and we're supposed to have snow on the 22nd, and then on the 23rd, it's supposed to be 9 degrees, and on the 24th, it's supposed to be 12 degrees. So it's going to be a very cold, possibly snowy Christmas, and although I'm not excited about the cold, although I don't mind it, I am excited about the fact that we're going to possibly have a white Christmas. So sometimes your dreams do come true. Okay, so in the Melody Beatty book, The Language of Letting Go, the meditation is called Feelings, December 15th. I was halfway through the reading when the camera stopped, but I didn't realize it until I looked up afterwards. So let me go back and start the reading over. Feelings. It's okay to have and feel our feelings, all of them. Years into recovery, we may still be battling with ourselves about this issue. Of all the prohibitions we've lived with, this one is potentially the most damaging and the most long-lived. Many of us needed to shut down the emotional part of ourselves to survive certain situations. We shut down the part of us that feels anger, sadness, fear, joy, and love. We may have turned off our sexual or sensual feelings too. Many of us lived in systems with people who refused to tolerate our emotions. We were ashamed or reprimanded for expressing feelings, usually by people who were taught to repress their own. But times have changed. It is okay now for us to acknowledge and accept our emotions. We don't need to allow our emotions to control us. Neither do we need to rigidly repress our feelings. Our emotional center is a valuable part of us. It's connected to our physical well-being, our thinking, and our spirituality. Our feelings are also connected to that great gift, instinct. They enable us to give and receive love. We are neither weak nor deficient for indulging in our feelings. It means we're becoming healthy and whole. Today I will allow myself to recognize and accept whatever feelings pass through me. Without shame, I will tune in to the emotional part of myself. You know, it's interesting because I think that people who watch my videos on a regular basis probably assume that, you know, I mean, I think you guys have seen me be pretty emotional at this point, right? I think that most people probably assume that I have been that way for much of my life. And it's interesting because, you know, like, Alex has had conversations with my dad where, you know, he'll say something, you know, to my dad about like, oh, like, you know, when Peter gets like real emotional or whatever, and my dad will say, you know, it's interesting because Peter was not that kid, and he'll say like he never threw temper tantrums, he didn't cry a lot, you know, he wasn't that kid, you know, and I wasn't, and you know, I wasn't really even that adult, and I think what ended up happening was just recently was when I really got in tune and in touch with my emotions, and it really took my mom passing away. And I remember even after that, there was a long time that I felt numb, that I just pushed my feelings down, and I just pushed them down, and I pushed them down, and I pushed them down, and I didn't really talk about them, and I didn't really address how I was feeling, and you know, I just didn't live out loud, so to speak. And that was also during, you know, the tail end of that was also during the time that I wasn't going to meetings and all that kind of stuff. When I came in to meetings again, and I started talking, not just about the loss of my mother, but the loss of, you know, past relationships and friends of mine that had passed away, and it was a mixture of anger, which I believe is a secondary emotion. I think anger is an emotion that covers up other emotions like pain, like hurt, things like that, and so I had all of these feelings, you know, but I had like a lot of anger attached to it, like anger at God, anger at myself, anger, I don't know what, you know, but I was very angry, and I can remember going to meetings and just being angry and crying and talking about all this loss in my life, and, you know, I couldn't believe that my mom was gone and whatever, and it was like, you know, it was like kind of like, you know, the gates had broken, you know, on the floodgates had broken, so to speak. And I just would sit in meetings and bawl my eyes out. And I can remember, like, on my way home, just listening to old music that my mom listened to, like Bob Dylan and stuff like that, and bawling my eyes out. And it was like I finally allowed myself to grieve, you know. And there were times before that I would, you know, I would pull over on the side of the road if a song came on, and I would allow myself to cry and stuff like that. But And that really worked for me for a long time. But I really had to just kind of like throw myself into feelings and throw myself into this ability to just, I mean, you know, like I could always feel my feelings privately. Like I never really struggled with that. Like I could always feel my feelings in private and get real emotional and whatever. But like if I had had like a bad day at school and like kids had been real mean to me, like I wouldn't come home and like cry about that to like my mom or like my dad. Like I like, you know, dealt with that privately. And even older growing up, you know, like going through breakups with people or, you know, in situations that had happened or whatever, I just kind of like internally dealt with that. And I never really like, I don't think that crying has to be the only way that we show emotion, but I don't think that I ever honestly like really truly felt my feelings and allowed myself to step into the feeling. And what I mean by that is that you really truly allow yourself to let that feeling come all over you, you know, whether it's complete sadness or anger or whatever that is, that you allow yourself to be, you know, enveloped in that feeling. And I think it's so important because I think, you know, the whole idea of like, you know, I've shared this on here before that somebody shared with me, was that we don't move through things, we don't move on from things, we move through things. Well, the only way to move through something is by feeling the feelings attached to it, you know? And so I'm very, very grateful that today I allow myself to feel things. You know, I cry probably, I don't know, 5 to 10 times a day, sometimes for 30 seconds, sometimes for 10 minutes, you know, just about random stuff, you know. I can't even, I was listening to a Christmas song and I started crying. Oh, Old Lang Syne. Alex was taking me somewhere and we were listening to Cascade's album and Old Lang Syne was on there. And I said, she has such a pretty voice. And I just started crying. And it was just like something that my mom would have said back in the day, you know. But that song always makes me so sad. I don't know why. And I said that to him and he goes, why does this song make you sad? And I said, I don't know. It's about kind of about endings and things like that. I said, but it always makes me sad, you know. And I'd actually thought about doing a whole video about that song. And so, but anyway, you know, it's just today I allow myself to feel my feelings. And as a result of that, I feel so human. I feel so human as a result of it. And I'm so grateful, you know, because for so much of my life, I just wouldn't allow myself to feel really anything. And I think I felt like I was selling myself short, you know. And I think, I don't know, I think for me, like at first, one of the things I did that was so helpful was I started like listening to music that pulled emotion, and I started watching movies that pulled emotion, and that really, really helped me like kind of get through things and also identify those emotions. And I would highly recommend that to you guys as well. So anyway, let me know what you guys think about all of that in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.